Pol Olivella, Local Flexibility Markets, from Empower to Invade. Sorry.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you especially for the invitation for this opportunity to talk about local markets. I have to say that the previous presentations were really encouraging. We started this issue about local markets 2.5 years ago. Then the idea to create local markets was completely futuristic and not expected from anybody. And nowadays we are here sitting with DSOs, with the Spanish market operator. We are talking about this implementation. I'm really happy for that. Today we have the opportunity to talk about Empower and INVADE. Both are H2020 projects focused on the development of local markets. So that's essentially what we have seen previously. The previous market, with the previous scenario, was with a lot of central generation, but in the near future we will have a lot of distributed generation. So the question is, can we buy the electricity locally? Can I buy electricity from my neighbors? So that's the aim of Empower, and we are trying to demonstrate that this is possible in the current days. So the first question that we have to address is, what's a local market? Essentially, we see that the rise of prosumers will change the relation between customers and the grid. But the question is, what negotiation power does have a single prosumer? A prosumer can have different distributed energy resources like electric vehicles, renewable generation, thermal storage, and home automation systems. So all these capabilities have a big potential in local markets. So can we create a market upon that? The story is that in the future we will have scenarios like this one with different kind of users in the distribution grid. Some of them having PV panels but working in the office, so they are willing to sell electricity to the neighborhood for the excess production. We have some consumers without PV panels for any reason, and we have other prosumers that are very smart and they are capable to fit with their production profile. So the question is, which is the value of this energy surplus injected in the grid for those prosumers that are willing to pay for local and renewable energy? So if we have buyers and sellers, we can create a market. The objectives of local markets, trying to address the question of why do we need a local market if we have a really well-functioning central market that for the moment is performing reasonably well. The first one and the main objective is to support business models whereby locally produced energy is primarily targeted for local consumers. So if people is willing to pay a little bit more for local and renewable energy, the value of local has a potential. So we want to create and to offer this competitive marketplace and to facilitate local trade. The second objective is to promote the installation of new distributed energy resources, because this is the aim of COP21, the aim of Clean Energy Package. All the backgrounds is to promote the installation of new generation. So local markets has to endorse that idea. Additionally, of course, the marketplace has to support the trade between end users, offering flexibility to the DSO, as we have seen today, in order to manage grid bottlenecks and providing power curtailments if we are capable to contain all the surplus generation within the distribution grid. And finally, if we have the capability to control flexible assets, how can we create such value to provide flexibility in wholesale markets for TSO or intraday markets? So these are the objectives, and here we have the main figure to understand the difference between many other alternatives and this one. First of all, this approach is a peer-to-platform approach. We are not dealing with peer-to-peer negotiations and trade. We assume that we have a central entity that is having the whole knowledge of the community, the local energy community, and this community can trade between peers and platform. The second point is that this smart energy service provider, which is the owner of the platform, it's not a DSO, it's an aggregator. Why? Because essentially we have seen that within the current regulatory framework, the DSO is not permitted for the moment, as I asked previously, is not permitted for the moment to manage local flexibility markets for regulatory bundling issues. So the question is, who can do that nowadays? And the only answer to that question is the aggregator. So if we have such entity, which we called a smart energy service provider, because it's not only providing flexibility, it's providing energy and other services as well, is capable to offer different kind of values using the same platform. One important thing is to see that our local market approach has a lot of common details with the wholesale market design. Why? Because essentially there is a parallelism between wholesale market schedules and activities and local market activities. For instance, the day-ahead market and the local energy market has a lot in common. So the issue is, can a local energy community prepare a common bid for the wholesale market and buy or sell energy from the community to the day-ahead market? The answer is, from our side, the answer is yes. And the local energy market aims to do that, to take benefit of our energy surplus or trying to pay as less as possible for the energy that we have to consume as a community. Additionally, there's a parallel, of course, between intraday and balancing markets with the flexibility market. Once the day-ahead market is closed, we can go to trade between ourselves for flexibility. And additionally, if we have potential to make money in wholesale markets, we can do that. So the design is in parallel in order to improve the maximum, or to maximize the interactions between the CESP, the local energy community, and wholesale markets. In order to know who is a participant of that local energy community, so we draw what we imagine in the future. So we have several prosumers in the same distribution grid with a single DSO, which is one of our main actors. And we have a central CESP platform, which is communicating from prosumers to wholesale markets. And such platform knows everything of our local energy community and is allowing the transactions between peers and platform. So who are the buyers of energy, of such flexibility from the local market? There are three. The first one, as we have seen today, the DSO, is willing to purchase flexibility in order to avoid grid expansions. Additionally, the CESP itself can be a buyer of such flexibility in case that the CESP is a balance responsible party or a retailer. It can be interested in buying flexibility in order to reduce penalty deviations. So there is another business here. And finally, the TSO, if someday the TSO is interested in to purchase flexibility from distribution side, we are capable to offer and aggregate flexibility from our local energy community and sell it to the TSO. Essentially, as I said, we have this agent, which is the CESP, and our central local market, which is split in three parts. As I said, energy, flexibility are two key products, but additionally other services are suitable for the local market, as we have energy, as we have the platform and we have the capability to monitor all the consumption and production of a single prosumer. Why can we not produce additional services like efficiency, maintenance, and forecasting systems? So in order to maximize the profit of having such platform, we can offer additional services for prosumers willing to have such benefit of the platform. And finally, as I said, the CESP, as a retailer or one responsible party, is willing to participate in wholesale markets for deficit or surplus of energy. We don't expect that the local energy market is balanced all the times. It's going to be impossible in the near future, at least, at the very least. Or maybe Tesla is going to bring very, very cheap batteries. But for the moment, it's not expected. So the wholesale local market interactions are going to be essential. The other thing that we have different probably with other proposals are the local contracts. We propose that in order to minimize the interactions between peers or prosumers and the platform, the contracts are the key to facilitate the user engagement. How? For example, if we can imagine a flexibility contract for shifting water heater, that it can be charged within a certain hours, a flexibility contract that we imagine could be the time constraints where the prosumers are willing to use hot water. For instance, in my case, I'm going to take a shower every day in the morning, so I want to have the tank fully charged at the beginning of the day, and I'm coming back after the end of the day. So what happens within the midday? I don't care. Do whatever you want. And such information can be shared in a very easy way with such flexibility contract. So these are the key interactions. So we don't expect that people is explaining the energy usage all the time with the app. We cannot expect that, at least from our point of view. They are going to be, their business are other ones. They have work, family, and other things. So we have to facilitate as much as possible such interaction. So that's the link between CESP and prosumers. The other one are between CESP and DSO and TSO. So our proposal is that there is a contract or different kind of contracts complementing the DSO-CESP interactions for long-term activations, for flexibility, for short-term activations, in order to facilitate the local market. So essentially, we have several interactions and I explained different business models, but the one that we explored in more detail in Empower is the DSO-CESP case. As we have analyzed in different pilots, the DSO are willing to buy flexibility in other countries as Norway for reducing grid expansions. So the implemented model that we have in Empower is such interaction, DSO, CESP, prosumers. And all of that elements has been implemented in the CESP platform, programmed and tested in programmed and tested in 3 pilots, but especially in Norway. And I would like to point that especially that our approach is a direct control approach algorithm. That means that all the information from end users are previously settled, as I said, in the flexibility contract. So as far as the flexibility contract defines the price for activating flexibility, the CESP activates flexibility on direct command. If the price that the DSO is willing to pay is higher than the price from such flexibility contract, we have a match. So the CESP activates that directly and pay the prosumer for such activation according to the flexibility contract. So it's a kind of pay-as-bid system. And here we can have kind of representation of flexibility from a single prosumer willing to offer different kind of flexible assets like the water heater, the space heater, and the electric vehicle. So some of them are cheaper than the others according to their user preferences. This is not the standard. This can be different. This can be different for every one of us. So the contract is going to reflect this approach. Here we have some simulations in order to know what's happening. In that case, the CESP is activating flexibility on behalf of the DSO. So the DSO sends a control message to the CESP asking for a certain amount of flexibility during the day. In this graph, in red, we have the amount of flexibility requested from the DSO, so it's kind of 2 kilowatt hours per quarter, so it's not much, but it's a very small community, 5 households. So in such community, we have different flexible assets like disconnectable loads or shiftable loads that are typically space heaters or water heaters, and electric vehicles as well. We have reducible generators or disconnectable when there is a down regulation. So, sorry, I missed that. In positive, we have up regulation, meaning that we have to increase generation or decrease consumption. And negative means down regulation, which means that it's the opposite. We have to decrease generation or increase consumption. Okay, so we have this command from the DSO sent to the CESP, and the CESP takes the best decision for every period. And the day is divided by quarters. So we have 96 periods of flexibility to schedule the community flexible assets. So, and on the lower side, we have the profile of the battery. As we can see, the battery is completely discharged during the night in order to try to optimize and store energy during the day, because PV panels injection is too much for the grid, and in order to try to optimize the self-consumption of the community, we discharge the battery during the night and we charge it during the day. So that's the main objective. Finally, only one additional remark. As you can see, during certain periods in the middle of the day in blue, we have had to disconnect generation because it's the only alternative. We don't have enough generation. We don't have enough storage in such community. We don't have enough shiftable loads to consume such energy. So at the end, if we don't have any alternative, we can disconnect generation to avoid any problem from the DSO. So in such sense, the DSO command, it's completely opaque. I don't have any information. I just know, as a CESP, I only know that I need to decrease the generation within these periods. I don't care about any other thing. So the grid, it's not known by the CESP, and I only act on behalf of the DSO. That's very important, but because knowing the grid status of every period, quarter, or whatever we want, it's a very critical information, and this is not going to be shared between CESP or aggregators and the DSO. So in order to keep such information protected and under command of the DSO, the CESP only knows the command and activates that. Finally, here you have a picture of our laboratory where we are testing the entire system before going to the real field. So we have different emulators behaving as diesel generators, PV panels, battery emulators, and loads that are behaving exactly the same as the real field. And we have connected our control system from the laboratory control system to the CESP platform. And we are receiving CESP control signals and activating that in order to test the entire communication system and control system to check what happens if there is an override or there is a mismatch between what has been sent or message errors. So everything is tested before going to the real field. some details. I don't want to extend much, but finally, very briefly introduce you what's next. INVADE is the continuation of Empower project in order to go further with the previous insights. So in Empower, we only programmed and developed the CESP DSO interaction. So the aim of INVADE is exactly to expand that between BRPs and TSOs and others. So in order to have a clear view about what's the difference between INVADE and Empower, essentially in green we have INVADE, which is managing a part of the entire portfolio, activating only flexibility. So the CESP, okay, thank you, sorry. Essentially the INVADE, it's managing only flexible assets on behalf of the BRP or the CESP or any other retailer. So that's a bit different. And finally, one detail is that the flexibility operator, which is the manager of such flexibility portfolio, has to be integrated with other home automation systems. You have seen that they are popping up from many places. There is a lot of companies developing home automation systems. So our vision is that in the future, we will have several platforms, and some of them are going to be central to manage different flexible assets. So there is different, I think that, I'm sorry, I missed time, but essentially, as the main thing that I can explain before leaving is that the different use cases that we are going to test in INVADE, this is the last thing. Essentially, we have seen that mobile storage, like EVs, centralized storage, and distributed storage are completely different businesses. So in order to test them, we are going to test mobile batteries in Norway because there is a lot of EVs, centralized EVs as well in Netherlands. Sorry, centralized batteries in Bulgaria and Spain, and finally a hybrid case in Germany where there is centralized and distributed storage. So I hope to come here in the future presenting more real results, but it is coming. It's going to come in the future. Thank you for your attention.